we're going to be talking about banking basics for success, helping migratory youth build their financial futures, and having access to equitable, inclusive banking is so important to building your financial future. My name is Milady Garcia. I am with the Financial Education Public-Private Partnership, and I will be delivering this webinar today. And I am so happy and honored that our guest speaker, Candy Bowlesby, is here with us from Hapo Credit Union. Candy is the Director of Community Engagement for Hapo, and she's going to have some very impactful, relevant information for low barrier access to financial institution accounts specifically for the migratory community. So I'm very, very happy that she could join us today. And I want to tell you a little bit more about me. I see that the participants for this webinar are not the same participants as my last webinar. So I get to say pretty much the same thing all over it and act like I've never said it before. My name is Milady Garcia. As I mentioned, I was born and raised in the Dominican Republic. That is a beautiful island that we share with Haiti, the lovely nation of Haiti. I graduated from New York University, and my background is in early childhood special education, early childhood education, and Spanish literature with a focus in Latin American studies. Prior to being with FEP, I did some work as interpreter and translator for different social service agencies. Currently in my role, I am the Special Populations Program Supervisor, and basically that means that my focus largely in the work that I do is to support financial education for our most underserved and underrepresented students and communities. That is my passion. I know that the work that I do makes a huge difference. I think financial education and financial awareness, learning the basics, especially for our students that are recently arrived and families that are recently arrived to the United States, learning the banking system, learning our financial system, how to navigate it is such a foundational step to building financial wellness and financial success. So I love what I do, and I want to thank all of you for being here today. I hope that you find this information relevant to the work that you do and useful for the families and students that you serve. Now that I told you a little bit about myself, I want to tell you a little bit about FEP. So we are, again, the Financial Education Public-Private Partnership, and we basically were created by legislature, excuse me. We're an education board tasked with providing, improving financial education in the state of Washington for all students. Our approach to this is we focus on providing professional development for educators and other education professionals that are providing supplemental services, such as yourself, to our students in Washington State. But we also focus a lot of time and effort to identifying high quality financial education resources that meet the academic needs of all our students, regardless of race, regardless of income, regardless of ability, and that reflect as much as possible, whenever possible, their real life experiences so that they feel empowered and they feel hope to achieve their financial goals. And for this webinar today, we're very briefly, just to give you an overview, we're going to be talking about how we do basically FEP's approach, how we provide financial education, how we support educators and students. We're going to recap our last webinar. So this is part 2 of a 4-webinar series. We're going to be discussing the cost of being unbanked and underbanked. We're going to talk about the different alternatives to banking and why they are high cost and why we advise our students and families to consider being banked if that's a possibility for them. And what to consider when choosing a financial institutions. We're going to talk about banks and credit unions. The topic that we're going to be expanding is, again, going to be banking on financial success. And then we're going to have our lovely Candy Bowlesby, our guest speaker, talk about Hapo credit unions and the low barrier accounts they offer to the migratory community. So we're going to just do a really quick recap of our last webinar. We talked about budgeting for success, right? We discussed what a budget helps us do and why it's important to achieve our financial goals. And one of the things that we discussed was how a budget helps us understand our relationship with money, how our emotions sometimes can trigger some spending that is not always planned, some compulsive shopping, and ways that we can use little tips and tricks to kind of help curb that and stick to our budget, stick to our financial goal. One of them is the 24-hour rule. My personal rule is if an item costs more than $100, I wait 24 hours before I purchase, because that way I can kind of think about it, come back and realize whether it's something that I really need or if this is something that my emotions are kind of driving me to get. We also talked about how to form positive, healthy financial habits. If we recognize once we look at our budget, if our income is not as high as we need it to be, how we need to prioritize saving money, maybe cutting back on our spending. But also, we talked about the importance of understanding if we're making enough money to meet our needs and our goals, steps that we can take if we realize that we're not making enough. Do I go back to school? Do I get specialized training? Do I ask for more hours at work? Do I get a second part-time job? Different things that we can do to help increase our income. Finally, we also talked about the importance of having savings not only to meet your goals and achieve your financial goals, but also to face financial emergencies. Those are things that are going to happen at some point. We may lose income due to losing employment. We may have a medical emergency. An appliance may break down. Our home needs repair. We need to have those savings there. It would be best if we have savings set aside for those events because again, they're going to happen at some point. And instead of sending us into shock, instead of sending us into kind of emotional stress, we can say, okay, I don't want this to happen, but I recognize that it has, and it's going to be okay because I've put money aside for this. And of course, we want to be able to achieve our financial goals. A lot of our students may already be focused on buying that first car, living on their own, their renting their first apartment. And it's important to have a good, positive relationship with money, understand how to budget so they can set aside a certain amount at the end of the month to meet that goal. So I like to start my webinars with a fun activity. If you could please enter your answer in the chat, which of these financial superheroes would you say is most like you? We have A, Frugal Ninja, B, Expense Slayer, C, Debt Destroyer, or D, Credit Guru. I know for me, I can tell you right away, I am frugal. I used to call myself cheap, but then somebody said, "No, frugal sounds so much better," and that's my go-to now. I am frugal. So I definitely find I never pay full price for for any item. I either wait for it to be on sale or I figure some out, but I never ever pay full price. So that's my secret superpower. If you could enter your answer in the chat. Oh, thank you. Candy is a credit guru. Oh, we have a few credit gurus. Okay. I love it. I love that. That is such an important skill to be able to manage your credit and understand your credit in order to achieve financial success as well. Thank you so much for participating in that activity. I really like it. Okay. Um, Now the next question is, what is the primary reason that unbanked individuals get for not having a bank account? And again, please use the chat to enter your answer. A lot of B's so far. Yep. Mistrust of financial institution is definitely there, especially for underserved communities that have been victims of redlining. I completely understand that. Okay. So it's actually lack of funds. A lot of people, there's a study done by the Federal Deposit of Insurance Corporation. They have a survey of unbanked and underbanked households. And the number one reason people cited for not having a bank account is lack of funds. They feel like there's a lot of fees associated with banking and they cannot meet the minimum requirement for deposit for having a bank account. And they also feel like they don't have enough money to set aside. They don't have enough money to save, so they don't need one. And it's important for us to know that because it really informs our work in communicating with individuals such as Candy, a representative from a financial institution. It helps us say, hey, what can we do to mitigate this? What is available for our low-income families and communities so that they can access an account with a financial institution without being feeling so income constrained? And I want to take a moment now for us to reflect on the challenges we might have faced when opening an account with a financial institution for ourselves. I know in my family, I was the first person to open a bank account. And the reason why I opened it was because I had scholarship money. It was the first time that I had any real surplus of income. And even though it was going towards my studies, it was the first time that I said, okay, I don't want to have this amount of money just laying around in the house, right? And it kind of forced me to consider what my options were. And I was very fortunate in having access to financial institutions where they spoke my language, where they understood kind of where I was coming from, the excitement that I felt, and also kind of like the anxiety because it was a real step in adulting for me at the time. But this is something very typical for Hispanic households. When compared to white households, we are 5 times more likely to be unbanked, 7 times as likely to just operate on cash, and twice as likely to be underbanked. And we're going to be talking about what those terms mean, unbanked and underbanked, in just a moment. But basically, it's going to impact our financial wellness journey if we're not able to access the resources and tools that financial institutions provide for us that can really help us build our financial futures. And as I mentioned, we're going to briefly talk about being unbanked is basically not having a bank account or not having an account with a credit union or any financial institution. Whereas being underbanked means you probably do have a bank account or an account with a credit union, but you're still accessing alternative financial services. And alternative financial services are check cashing places, prepaid cards, payday lending, and it's expensive to do that. The reason why we talk about the importance of being banked is that we have data that shows that being unbanked and underbanked can cost about $40,000 over a lifetime due to the high cost of accessing alternative financial services, right? When you go to a check cashing place, they either take 10% or charge you $10 to catch that check, right? When you go and buy a money order to pay your bills, these are all things that are usually higher cost than, the free checks that you get from your financial institution. And it really does add up. I think $40,000, even with inflation being what it is a significant amount of money, especially for our families that are income limited and constrained. And a lot of the barriers that our out of school youth specifically face to access financial institutions and accounts is they have a higher mobility rate, which makes it kind of difficult for them to feel like, yeah, I can form a relationship with this financial institution and I'm going to know them and I'm going to be sticking around. That's not the case for them. They also have inconsistent incomes, right? Their work is kind of seasonal, and it definitely has peaks and valleys in terms of their cash flow. They may believe that they have to have a certain amount in order to open that bank account. If they are not able to maintain that cash balance, they may believe that they don't have access to an account with a financial institution. There's also a lack of trust. If you feel like your information is going to be given to immigration and you're undocumented or underdocumented, that could really pose a challenge, and you may really think twice or even just choose to not bank with a financial institution at all due to fear of how that's going to impact your status in the United States. And of course, living in banking deserts, that's another big challenge for our family, especially when you're isolated, living in rural areas where there are no financial institutions around. It might be too much work to get to a bank or a credit union. And these are different reasons that we have to take into account when we're talking to our migratory youth, especially the ones that are out of school. We're focusing on our out of school youth because we know many of them are already working. Many of them are already managing their resources. And this would be really timely information for them that can help them improve their financial futures. Now, I want to take a look at the data pertaining specifically to Washington state. We know about 225,000 individuals in Washington are completely unbanked, meaning that they don't have access to a checking account or savings accounts with either a bank or credit union, and over 1 million are underbanked. And again, these are individuals that may have a checking or savings account, but they're still going to those check cashing places. They're still accessing money orders. They're still accessing prepaid cards and payday lending. the majority of these individuals are minorities. They're going to be our Black and Brown communities, our Native American communities, our Hispanic communities. And one of the things that I like to tell people is it is really expensive to be broke. It is usually our most income limited individuals that are accessing the highest cost alternatives for financial services. And I feel that were they to have access to this information, that explains to them, hey, there's a better way to access the resources that you need that is going to cost less or no money, and your information is going to be safe, your status is going to be safe. If they were able to understand and have access to that information, they could probably feel encouraged to take those steps to have a better option for accessing financial services. We don't want them to waste money on those services, but it's understood. I myself used check cashing services for a long time before I became banked, and many people in my family did as well. And it's not a matter of shaming them or making them feel bad. We just want to share information that is relevant and timely and make sure that they know about the different options that are out there so they can access a low cost alternative. Now, I want to share with you this video. It comes from consumer.gov.
David didn't
Oh,
like carrying cash around after payday. He wanted a different way to pay for things, but he didn't want a bank account or credit card. So David decided that a prepaid debit card would solve the problem. He could load money on the card and use the card to buy things. David found a bunch of prepaid cards at the store. He chose the card recommended by his favorite singer. He loaded $200 on the card and went shopping. But when David checked his balance a few weeks later, he got a surprise. He didn't know he paid $10 to activate the card, $12 a month to maintain it, $3 every time he bought something, $6 to check his balance, $3 to get cash from an ATM, $4 to get his statement in the mail, $2 to talk to a customer service agent, and $3 to reload the card. David loaded $200 on the card, but got to spend only $157. So David did some research and found a prepaid card with lower fees. He got rid of the first card and switched to the new one. He's much happier now.
okay.
One day, Laura called the
So sorry about that. That was going to start again without my authority. Excuse me. So that was just a short video from consumer.gov that highlights how much money you can potentially spend on something like a prepaid card if you don't understand the terms. They can be very costly, and so can all the other alternatives. And that's a video that's available in English and Spanish. I shared a little bit about consumer.gov in our first webinar. It is a resource from the Federal Trade Commission, and they have different information available in English and in Spanish. It is completely free, and it is created specifically for our newcomers to the United States to help them understand and navigate our financial system. And I think we have
David didn't like carrying cash.
Excuse me, I'm going to pause that before it starts again. We have another one, another video from them a little later on. And that one is going to talk about how to choose a financial institution that is right for you and offers the services that you need. But before we do that, I want to talk about the requirements for a bank and credit union and why it's important for our community, especially our minority communities that are asset limited, to make sure that they know the perks, basically, of having access to a bank account or an account with a credit union. And one of the main reasons is, of course, to keep your money safe. When you don't have access to a bank account, you usually keep money at home. And if you're living in a situation where you're sharing housing with another family, and many of our family that are experiencing extreme economic hardship often are, that can be really difficult. And it's not safe for your money to be at home, especially because if there's any type of theft, fire, flooding, anything that happens to your property, you could potentially lose all of that money. It gives you the ability to pay using a debit or check, a debit card or a check, instead of having your money with you, which is, again, riskier. You can access money from ATM machines, excuse me, that are available in multiple locations. And it also gives you ease to pay your bills online using your checking account. Instead of buying money orders or using prepaid cards that have higher costs, if you link your checking account to whatever utility company or whatever bills you need to pay, that is going to be free. And Candy is going to tell us about the next reason why it's important to have a bank account or an account with a credit union.
Thank you, miladies. I'm just taking all
Absolutely.
this information and it's so shocking. And that video actually made me a little sick to my stomach to see how much it really costs to have a prepaid card. I didn't get to see that video last week, so I'll be using that one for a future class. So thank you. Yes, so when it comes to establishing credit and building your credit history, it's not the account itself that will do that for an individual. It's really just having the account and just allowing us to see that relationship that you have with us, and seeing kind of like the way that money is being spent and just like the what's incoming and what's outgoing and the way that that is handled, because that is actually part of what like tells a story of like how the money management is. And that's something that we can actually use when it comes time to like a credit decision, especially for those first time applicants. I
Mhm.
know a while ago, um, really long time ago, when I used to work in branches as a loan officer, I would actually help some of our membership that had zero credit, and them having the account kind of really gave them the upper hand, because then we saw that, hey, you've been a longstanding member. We see that you do well, with managing, what comes in, what comes out, and that could be very helpful in that sense, where it could just give you that leg up to get your credit started. But the account itself doesn't necessarily report, we don't report anything like that unless it's like a negative thing and it goes like delinquent or to collections, and that's a whole other thing. But otherwise, we don't report anything on
Thank you
the
so
account.
much for that. Thank you. I appreciate that. It is definitely important, especially for newcomers. If you come from a nation where credit was not as used as it is in America, in America, it is very important to establish a positive credit history to access wealth, to access loans, to access lower interest rates. So it is important for our recently arrived families and individuals to understand how accessing a bank account and establish a positive credit file with a bank account can possibly help you build that credit history and access different resources like a secured credit card that we're going to be talking about in our next webinar, um, to start establishing a positive credit history. And last but not least, as I mentioned earlier, getting access to cashing checks, wire money, pay other people through apps without having to pay a fee is just there are some of the perks that you have when you have access to a financial institution, be it a bank or a credit union. Again, it saves you so much money, potentially $40,000 over a lifetime, when you access the tools and resources that are free when you have the support and the backing of a financial institution as opposed to all those alternative banking services. Now, before this next video, I'm going to tell you what it's about. We're going to be watching a very short, I think a minute and a half video on things to consider when choosing a financial institution. Again, this video is from consumer.gov with the Federal Trade Commission, and it is available in English and Spanish.
Sarah wanted a savings account to help her save for a car, and she wanted a checking account to pay her bills. She went to a bank near her office. Sarah was surprised that they charged a monthly fee for anyone with less than $1,000 in the bank. So Sarah decided to do some homework. She made a list of the things that were important to her. She wanted a bank with lots of ATMs. She didn't want to pay fees, so she wanted a bank that let her keep a low minimum balance without charging her extra. She also wanted a bank that paid interest on both her savings and checking account. Knowing what she wanted, Sarah compared a credit union with another bank. The credit union didn't have many ATMs, but she could use any other credit union's ATM for free. There were no fees and no minimum balance required, and both accounts paid a small interest rate. The bank had lots of ATMs. It also had fees if her balance went below $300. The savings account paid interest, but not the checking account. Sarah thought the bank might be more convenient, but she worried about paying fees if her balance went below $300. And she liked the idea of getting interest, even a little bit, on her money. Sarah decided the right place to help her save and pay her bills was the credit union. But it was a tough decision.
I love these videos from consumer.gov because they are quick, informative, and to the point, and they explain things very, very simply. So again, it's a resource that I continue to use time and again because I find it very applicable, and the information is just really easy to digest, and it makes you feel like, okay, I understand what they're talking about. I get the difference here between a bank and a credit union. So now I want to talk to you briefly about what different things we need when we open an account with a financial institution. So of course, we're going to need ID and some personal information. Usually the personal information is going to be something like your birth certificate, your social security, and that can be a challenge for our underdocumented or undocumented families and individuals. But traditionally, to open an account, those are some of the personal identification records that you would need. You often always also need proof of address, something to verify your place of residence. Again, could be a challenge for migratory families as they're moving around at higher rates, right? They have a lot higher mobility than our non-migratory families. And traditionally, you also need an initial deposit, which is one of the reasons why so many unbanked and underbanked individuals cite for not having a bank account is definitely just feeling like they're income constrained and they cannot, put money in an account where they're going to be potentially paying to have that account open, to keep it open, and also have a minimum deposit requirement to have the account. So traditionally, that's what you need to open a bank account. But today I want to talk to you about low barrier accounts. And these are accounts that make banking accessible for our minority families, families that have traditionally faced barriers to join the financial system, the banking system in the United States. These are accounts that where you have either no minimum balance requirements or very low minimum balance requirement, low or no monthly fees, very easy access, a simplified application process. They also often offer financial education resources and no overdraft fee, which is really important as well, especially if you don't have a consistent income all the time. You don't know how much you're going to be making month to month. It could be easy to kind of overdraft your account. And those kind of fees also stack up very quickly. It is definitely not cheap. And they also have inclusive services, usually people who speak your language, whether it's Spanish or another language, so that you can understand the conversation and the terms that are being explained to you. So when we're having banking conversations with our families and our out-of-school youth in the migratory education program, we want to make sure we share this, shocking data. The fact that you can spend potentially $40,000 over a lifetime using alternative banking services. And it's something that you don't need to spend if you're able to access a low barrier account. That to me, the first time I heard that, I was absolutely shocked, and it's impactful. So it's something I think would definitely get their attention because everybody's trying to save money. It's not even about whether you feel like you have enough. You can never have enough money, right? To feel like you're comfortable and you're not going to be worrying about it. Share your personal banking journey. I shared a little bit with you about the fact that I was the first person in my family to become banked. And the reason why I did it was because I actually had some money to save. I actually had some money I needed to take care of. And that can go a long way in lowering those barriers where students don't feel like they won't be understood. It makes you feel approachable and personable to them. Also, approach the conversation with curiosity. Ask about what challenges they feel they would be facing when considering opening an account with a financial institution. Everybody's journey is a little different, and it's always good to have an open mind and approach the conversation in a non-judgmental way. Focus on the cans. Always focus on the positive, on the things that they have access to, on the things that they can achieve instead of the can'ts, because again, we want to empower. We want to make them feel hopeful. We want to focus on how this could potentially help them reach their financial goals and establish a positive financial future. So those are some of the tips that I have for you when you're considering approaching banking conversations with the students you serve in the communities that you work in. And without further ado, I am going to again introduce to you Candy Bowlesby from Hapo Credit Union. She is the Director of Community Engagement, and Hapo Credit Union is a long-standing partner of FEP. We are a public-private partnership, so we have public and private stakeholders. It is an honor to have you with us today, Candy. And I think you've been a partner of ours for 6 years. Hapo Credit Union has been a partner. So I'm honored that you joined us for this webinar today, Candy. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Milady. It's really an honor to be a part of this series of webinars. I always find so much value in them and appreciate them and all the work that you do at FEP. So yes, we've been longstanding partners now, actually, since we started the financial education division here at HAPO about 6 years ago. So we really went full force, got involved in a lot of projects and a lot of just fun programs that really met a need out in our communities. So we'll get started here with a little bit about myself. So I've actually been with HAPO now for it'll be 16 years in February.
Wow.
I started as a teller, so I had roles as a teller and was considered a loan officer, an assistant manager. And I was lucky enough to work at several different locations where I got this really unique experience and really boots on the ground opportunity to work with the different needs of our members. And really a big part of my career here at HAPO was really in the operations world on the front line, where I got to hear a lot of member stories. And I actually got to see myself a lot of the reasons and to hear the stories and the reasons as to why a lot of our members now back then weren't so trusting, not just like in general, right? Banks, one of the first things that I would hear, first comments was, me van a robar, they're going to steal my money. That mistrust that comes behind that, and just depending on the nation that they come from, right? And not having really anything structured and in place. So I am actually besides HAPO, because I feel like I've been at HAPO for so long, it's like my everything. I feel like I was born here. But I'm actually the firstborn daughter of migrant parents myself from Michoacan. And I was very intentional with adding that firstborn daughter portion, just because with that, if anybody here in this webinar today is a firstborn child, kind of what comes with that, the responsibility that could come with that, especially in a dynamic where with my family, just very early on, it was just myself, my mom, and then my two siblings. So I really had to play that helper role, and really step in and step up to help the family, which was really advantageous because it made me very resourceful. And as I was also the translator, I got to learn a lot of things. So a lot of good things that came with that. So now I do have a family of my own. So I have two beautiful little girls. I mentioned in here that I'm driven and courageous. The reason why is because of just the things, the adversity that overcome in my life, and just not just finances, but just in general, having that experience of having my mom and my dad be newcomers to the US themselves once upon a time ago. So I got to see that from a different lens, which was very unique to my position now, because then I learned ways to overcome those barriers and those obstacles that held people from trusting and in, opening up an account with us and then starting their credit and then setting those big dreams of owning a home, because I would share a lot of the time, even just like my mom's story and like her journey to home ownership, which took a really long time, but eventually she got there. But I like to share that a lot because it's very real. And I also like to let people know that it's a real achievable dream for them as well. So my education background, I actually received my Bachelor of Applied Science in Business Management a while ago. Originally, I started in the psychology field, but very quickly changed my mind. It was really fun. I really loved everything that I learned, but really found that business was my jam. So that's what I went with. And also really the reason why I'm in my role now, and I've been here so long, is because I'm really passionate about serving the community that I live in, especially just like knowing the struggles that a lot of our members have been through. It really is special to be a part of that journey where you help people, just in different walks of life, just overcome different struggles, different barriers. It's just really, really unique. And fills my cup. It doesn't feel like I'm working every day. It's amazing to be in this role that I'm in today. Next slide, please. Okay, so we're gonna get started talking a little bit more in depth about low barrier accounts as it pertains to HAPO. So full disclosure here, the information that I'm about to share, it is really just that information that speaks to HAPO. All banks and credit unions have different services, terms, and conditions that they have themselves. What I'll be discussing today is just something that we offer here today and is subject to change. So I mentioned that I've been here a really long time. So a long time ago, we used to require just a $5 minimum deposit to have an account with us. Now it's 0. That changed actually a while ago. So that makes it really easy to open an account because as we saw in the previous slides when Milady talked about one of the reasons as to why people are unbanked is that was one of the reasons. Actually, the main reason was the lack of funds. Well, here at HAPO, we don't require a minimum balance. Nor are there any monthly maintenance fees, which is also very advantageous because as you also saw, those small fees, although they may seem small, can add up over time. And really, I love that statistic that you shared, Milady, about the $40,000 and the cost of being unbanked, because that just comes to show how much it really costs. It's very expensive. So another thing that we actually have focused on over the last like 5, 6 years, around the same time our financial education department started, is offering just solutions for banking deserts. So we have some products that speak to that as well here that you'll see here on this slide. The first one, probably one of the ones that I'm most proud of, is actually our mobile branch, which is essentially a branch on wheels where you can really do anything that you can. You can open an account, there's an ATM, you can apply for a loan. Really, it's like a full service branch on wheels. That's been really just instrumental to our connection with the migrant community, especially here being based in Eastern Oregon, where we do have a lot of farmland and we do have a lot of large employers that are really just out and literally in the middle of nowhere. So it's been really neat to see that department form these relationships and just really getting out there and offering our products and services to those that don't have access to it. Also being considerate of like the hours that they work. It's not really feasible for them to get out here or to any of our locations. So it's really nice that we get to come to them. Another solution that we have that could help just meet the need of banking deserts is, of course, technology is awesome when it works, right? But mobile banking, we do offer free mobile banking to our members where you can transfer funds, you can keep an eye on your funds, you can set up bill payer, which is a free service that you can use to pay bills in lieu of writing out checks and saving you the time, the postage, all of those good things that come with it. A couple products that are actually tied to our mobile banking and that are free of charge are Savvy Money, which is a credit score tool. I think probably one of the oldest tools out there is Credit Karma. You've probably heard of Credit Karma. It's very similar to that, where it gives you an idea of where your credit score is. But not only does it give you that information, it also has a built-in simulator. So if you've ever been curious to know, well, how much will my credit score go down if I apply for a credit card? Or what happens if I'm late on a payment? There's a list of multiple scenarios that you can run through this simulator, and it will tell you approximately what your credit score change will be, which is very helpful in also making a decision. So if you're looking to maybe, I don't know, you want to buy a car, but you want to see, but you're really working on building your credit because you really want a house, it will help you make those decisions and just give you more information. Another free tool that we offer through mobile banking is our money management tool, which is essentially just a digital budgeting tool. We do offer, of course, different formats that we know that there's like the envelope method, there's pen and paper, old school, there's Excel spreadsheets, but then there's also this digital tool that we have to offer in which, depending on where you may have loans or credit cards or different accounts, even outside of HAPO, you can, depending on the carrier, you can link it to the same system so that you can see everything as a whole. And it has like really, if you like pie charts and that sort of thing and graphs, then this is going to be for you because it has everything just really nicely organized and at a glance view where you can see where you are in your finances. Milady did mention, well, actually, in the video, they did mention a little bit about access to ATMs. That's actually one of the reasons, another reason why I've heard just in general why before I heard this more often, but where people didn't want to open an account with the credit union because they thought, oh, well, you guys only have, access to your locations in a very regional spot, and also your ATMs are only, only at those branch locations. Well, that's not true because we have access to actually over ourselves over 30,000 ATMs nationwide because of the co-op that we formed with other credit unions, basically saying we get to borrow each other's ATMs. So that's really handy. I mentioned already that we do have a free bill payer service for our members, as well as a payday alternative loan. This one's really interesting. This program came out about maybe, I don't know, 7, 8 years ago. But it's been really helpful with those situations where there is just like an immediate need. And it's something that's like very just like a temporary thing, right? I was actually watching a show the other day called Opportunity Knocks, which is a fantastic show on PBS. I don't know if you've heard of it, but I absolutely love it. But in that show, it's a series of just these different financial coaches that go through these journeys with these different families, and they help them, get from A to B, depending on what their financial goals are. And one of the families that was featured, they talked about just, a couple times needing that they were in a pinch, they needed some money quick, so what do? They went to this payday loan servicer, don't recall the name, but he was looking, the financial coach was looking at the financial statement and mentioned, did you know that you're paying almost 700% in
Wow.
interest? And if you make the minimum payment, like you will have this debt forever. Like this will never go away. I, I've heard of stories like that before, but never 700%. That is just outrageous. And really just not doable, right? So one thing that we offer, like I mentioned, is the alternative loan, which the limit is, of course, substantially lower and the interest is lower than what you typically see out there. And I'll actually go over that here now just to give you an idea. So the way our payday loan alternative is structured is we offer anywhere from $200 to $400, but it's only set up for 2 months. So that means you have to pay it back in 2 months, and the interest is 18%, a lot lower than 700. There's no application fee. And really just, I was like, okay, I want to see how much this is going to cost, right? It's a little over $9. If you were to get $400 and pay it back in 2 months, a little bit over $9 in interest. Much better than paying 700% interest. So that is an option, and you see it used here and there, but it's good to know that, hey, that is an option when needed. We also do offer wire transfers, both domestic and international. Those are pretty simple. We don't have any really, wild limitations or anything. The only fee that is associated with that, of course, is just for the service itself. Is for domestic, it is a $25 fee, and for international, it's $50, but it is an option that we offer in-house. Another thing that we offer are just different credit building options. So we do have actually a share secured visa and loan that we do offer for those situations where, especially when you're a newcomer and you're starting from zero, there's really nothing. That's a good option for somebody that may have, because our programs start with as low as $300, where they are able to deposit and freeze, that amount of money into a savings account where they can use that basically as a collateral for that loan. So that's a good option for that kind of situation. And there's a lot more that comes with that, but maybe we can talk about that another time that I can share. And we also do offer financial coaches. We have at this time, I believe, over 120 financial coaches across all of the credit, all of our branches, which we're primarily in Eastern Oregon, as well as we have a couple branches in Oregon. So all of Washington, Eastern Oregon, is it Hermiston and Portland? I was trying to remember where we were. So that's where we have our branch locations, and we have a financial coach at every single branch, which is really awesome to say. So now jumping into just a different alternative forms of ID. This is a list of all the different identification that we accept as long as it is not expired. So you can see the list here. One of the newest ones that we started accepting here about a year ago is actually the Matrícula Consular from Mexico, which I was super excited about because that is something that we did see come through our branches. Um, when it came to identification and before, I mean, it was one of those things where it was like we had to, turn it away. But fortunately, we did start accepting that form of identification. And that has also met a real need in the community. Another alternative form of just personal information that we do accept is an ITIN. So Milady mentioned earlier having to provide certain personal information such as social security number. ITIN is another one that we accept, which is just short for individual taxpayer identification number. And really, we need either or social security number or an ITIN. And it's really just so that we're able to report any tax dividends that have been paid out to a member. That's really all that it is used for. We don't work with immigration or anything like that. We don't share information with immigration. When we ask for this kind of information, it is really just for us to be able to report that we pay dividends on that piece. Okay, next slide. Okay, so a little bit about HAPO. So let's see, our mission and our focus is to offer financial products and services that bring value to our members through all stages of life. I was mentioning to the lady that I really love how inclusive that simple statement is because it really does capture, it can mean anything, right? Our members are not a one size fits all. And that's one thing that I really love also about HAPO is just the different programs and how intentional we are and the things that we do in having, financial education classes and just resources that we offer to the community. Another thing that I'm really proud of is something that we've worked towards for a while is actually our designation for Juntos Avanzamos, which is from the Inclusive Network based out of New York. So this network is really solely designed to support credit unions that are dedicated to serving, empowering Hispanic communities and migrant communities. So really that is all that they do. It is fantastic. They really just really truly help consumers navigate the US financial system so that they feel safe and that so that they have access to affordable programs as well as products and services that are relevant to their needs. So we earned this designation because not just because of, yes, there was an application process and all of that, but really it's just been through our continued dedication to the programs that we have to offer that we've actually been offering for a really long time. So I mentioned that I've been here a while. One of the things that we started offering up, I want to say over 10 years ago, it's been a while, is actually lending, consumer lending to ITIN holders, where that is still something that isn't available through all credit unions or all financial institutions, but that is something that I'm proud to say that we do offer. And the way we price them, when I say price, I mean the way we charge the interest on that particular loan is actually done the very same way. The underwriting process, everything is done the very same way as it is for somebody that holds a social security number. So it's the same, apples to apples, same interest rates, not more, it's not less, it is the same, which I'm proud to share. Next slide, please. Okay, a little bit more about HAPO. So HAPO actually stands for Hanford Atomic Products and Operations. We were actually started back in 1953 by a group of non-exempt blue-collar Hanford employees. So here in Richland, Washington, which is where I'm based out of, we have our Hanford nuclear site, which is actually not very far from where I am right now. And our first location was in a hospital, and it was there for about 3 years until it moved. And at this time, we do have 20 branches. Well, I mean, 21 if you count the mobile one on wheels, and then soon to be 26 locations at the end of next year. At this time, we have a little over 200,000 members. And as I mentioned before, we operate in the state of Washington, but we are state chartered, parts of Eastern Oregon. Oh, and I forgot to mention, this is a newer thing too, that we did expand into certain counties of Northern Idaho. We don't have any branch locations there, but we do have like dealer direct. We offer like consumer loans, auto loans to certain regions in Northern Idaho. And also just a bonus information here about HAPO. And actually, this wasn't in the video when it came to the difference between banks and credit unions. One of the biggest differentiators between us is just that if you're a member of a credit union, you're a part owner because your deposit means that that is your share in the credit union. Um, and the way we also, another thing that we do is we do really just pay it back to our members and to the community by offering better rates on loans. That's how you see the difference, why it's always like almost a little lower than banks. We also offer free or low cost services, and as well as higher dividends. I didn't see it in here. I don't know what happened, but we do also offer, I know that there was mention of, what are they? Money orders. There you go. Like, what are they called? Money orders. Services like that. We don't offer money orders, but we do offer something called a cashier's check, which is essentially the same thing. It's
Yeah.
just really a guaranteed form saying, hey, there are funds, funds actually had to clear at the same time this check was printed. So that's what that is. And that is something that we offer here for free. And I think yeah, I feel like there was a couple things missing there, but I don't know. I went so fast there. Another thing that's really important, actually, that was not here on this presentation is just the way we design programs and products. I really just appreciate how it's so people centered. And that's actually really in line with the philosophy of just credit unions as a whole, where our motto is literally people helping people. And it's just a really neat thing to see, come into fruition and the way we do things, the way we operate and serve our communities and their various needs. Something that I'm also, again, very proud of. And I've been so fortunate enough, to start here at HAPO at a young age where I was in an environment where I just absorbed everything, I picked everything up. And it was very helpful to me and just my journey in building my credit, saving, and just really changed my life. It really has been life changing. Something I'm super passionate about, that I really just like to share because you hear that saying that you don't know what you don't know, right? And I believe that's also part of the reason why people don't realize, hey, you have a choice. There are different like options out there that are better or that are free or that are for you. And that's something I really like to share, that you do have options, and something that I'd like to have, shared with the students and parents that you get to work with on a daily basis. And I think that's all I have for you, unless you have any questions. We have 6 minutes.
Thank you so much, Candy, for sharing all that information about your journey, your family's, your mom's journey, about accomplishing that. I think everyone has that dream of, home ownership. And it's inspirational. I like to share those personal stories because it really does drive the point home that even though it's going to be a lot of hard work, it is achievable and all of us can do it. And it's so much easier when you have the tools and resources available and access those tools and resources to help you achieve that dream. I cannot thank you enough for being with us today. Um, I want to just kind of circle back to the overall theme of the webinar and the key takeaways today. An account with a financial institution can help us achieve our financial goal in many ways. First and foremost, it helps us keep our money safe, right? Way safer than keeping it under the mattress, or I don't do it anymore, so I'm going to share it with you. I used to keep it in a coffee can because, nobody drinks coffee, right? Nobody's going to look there. It helps us keep our money safe, but it also helps us save money. And that's a big goal for us, especially when we first arrive, when we're trying to figure things out, especially when compared to alternative banking services that are oftentimes predatory and very high cost. It helps us eventually establish a credit profile and grow our credit score when we use those services like a secured credit card that can be accessed with a bank or a credit union. And again, the whole goal and the whole theme is for us to help our out-of-school youth, our migratory youth, families, and communities achieve those financial goals, to feel hope, to have faith that there are resources out there that they can access that are low barrier, that kind of take out the guesswork for them. People who speak their languages, forms that are easy to access and fill out, and being underdocumented or undocumented may not necessarily be a barrier to access the resources that they need at that time. I want to remind you before I let you go today, I still have you for 4 minutes. I want to remind you the next step after this webinar tomorrow, promptly, you will be receiving a survey, and it really does inform our work. It's only going to take about 2 or 3 minutes to fill that survey. I want to hear from you. I want your feedback. I want you to tell me what I did right, what I could improve upon, any other topics that you would like us to cover on future webinars. So please, please, please take those 2, 3 minutes to fill out that very short webinar. And I also want to let you know, January 27th, we will have our third webinar in this webinar series, and it's going to be on credit, the ever important, always all-encompassing credit. We need it to access low interest rate loans. We need it to build wealth. We need it for so many things in the American financial system. And it's a little complicated to understand. Nobody kind of explains these things to us. We kind of have to figure it out on our own. And we want you to feel comfortable and confident explaining credit to the youth that you serve in your community. So please join us January 27th at 2 p.m. I can't wait to hear from you with those webinars. If you have any questions for me or for Candy at this time, I would love to answer them. And I want to thank you so much for your time and attention today.